I'm Rita Stroman, and I grew up in Keswick, Iowa, a very small town. If you drove through it and winked, you would probably miss it. That's how small it was. And I was born by a father who was quite a wonderful person, as my mother was, and both of them had the honor of going to college. And they had 7 children. One died, and they were determined we would go to college. I was teaching, and one morning in the classroom, I said to the students, we always prayed, let's pray for Dr. Martin Luther King, who was put in the Birmingham jail last night. And we did, and afterwards the little boy, Tommy, what was his last name? I don't know. And anyhow, Tommy said, Miss Strong, or Sister, can we please write him in the jail? I said, Tommy, what a nice idea. We'll do it in English class today. And we did, and we sent them, and I wasn't sure how to get them there, but I thought, but I had done some work with a lot of the guys that were marching, and I had marched in Minnesota, and I had marched in Michigan, and there was lots of priests there that got to know me, and one of the priests, I called him, and we were pretty good friends. I called him and I said, can you do anything? He says, sure I can get them mailed to you. You send them to me and I'll get them in there. Because I didn't have any idea of how to get them to him and whether it would even be possible. And so about 2 weeks, was it 2 or 3 weeks later, we had this beautiful picture of him that he had sent back and thanked us. And it was so neat, and I had put it up in the classroom and everything. And it became a big thing. And one of the people who wrote the paper for Marshalltown had wanted to talk about it. And so he did, and he saw the picture, and he talked to the kids and everything. It was a nice little write-up in the magazine, or in his paper that year. Well, they all wrote their own, and all of them were sent to them. There were probably 30 kids in the class, and he had all those papers that each one of the kids had written, and they wanted to do some picturing too. And so I said, okay, but now don't make it too. And so we did that, and they all were sent. And then the picture came back, and then Martin Luther King came to Devonport. He was only in Iowa once, and it was in Devonport. And he said, this guy that had helped me said, you've got to go see him. And I had to get permission, because you were a nun and you didn't travel at night and you didn't travel with other people other than a nun and all that, And so anyhow, he came and picked me up because he was coming in from Minnesota to go to it. And so we went that night, but I had to be back in the classroom the next day, So we went, and when we went to leave, I said, come on, we got to get out of here because I got to get home. We got to get home. And he said, no, you have to go up and see him. And he said, come on, Rita. I said, oh no. And I went up, and he said, Dr. King, this is the teacher, sister, whose children wrote you in the Birmingham jail. And he looked at me, and I could not say a word. I was crying. And he took my hands, and he said to me, they were prayers every night in the jail. Those children were my prayers. I looked at those every night. And I just couldn't say anything to him. I was just lost. And all I was doing was crying. And he was holding my hands. And then finally I said, Dr. King, thank you for what you were doing for your people. And he said, thank you for helping me do it. And he hugged me. He came to me. And I can remember letting go of his hand and squeezing it.
So I believe that was April 28th, 1965 was the award, and that was 2 years after the Birmingham jail. That was April of 1963.
I didn't check into that. Yeah. Wow.
Were you still in habit then and everything?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. See, he knew I was a nun. Mm-hmm.
So this was
2 years after.
2 years after. So the kids that wrote the letters,
Did not know that I got to see him.
they still, do they have,
No, I was not teaching there that year.
what school was it?
St. Mary's, but what was interesting, the little boy,
St. Mary's in Marshalltown?
I think it was St. Mary's, and anyhow, what happened is I said to the boy, now this is yours. You get to take it home in the summertime. And then when you come back to school next year, if I'm not here, and I think that was the year I knew I wasn't coming back, and I said, we had 2 classes of the same grade. And so I said, so you take it to one class in the first half of the year, and then change it to another class in the middle of the year. And I think he did. But then they took the school down, and I went to get it, and I could not find it.
This is the picture
Of Dr. Martin Luther King.
that Martin sent back.
Yeah, and I presume the little boy had it, or they threw it away when they were tearing down the building. I don't know. But the teacher that was teaching there, the nun, she was very supportive of what had happened, and I can't help but think she would have tried to save it. But I just was teaching somewhere else, and, those kind of things kind of don't come.
You don't remember the boy's last name?
No, I don't. I wished I did.
And
We can check in the
what
archives.
year that would have been?
That would have been April of 1963.
What grade was it?
I think it was 4th grade.
In 4th grade,
5th grade, 4th or 5th. See, I taught every grade. I taught every grade
This
in
was a
grade school.
Catholic school. Is this still in existence?
No, see, it dropped right after I left. That next year it was there, and that was it. Just the other day I went over to the new fairway over here that has all these fancy little things, and there was a black man that walked in, and I had my card, and it was kind of small entrance, and he was being so nice, and it wasn't working right. And so he was fixing for me. I said, oh, you're so nice. And he said, well, you look pretty nice too. and I said, now, I said, well, I guess I'm okay for a 86-year-old. And he said, no, you're not 86. I said, yes, I'm 86. And he was so cute, and we had this conversation, and all of a sudden I said, would you like the energy of Martin Luther King? I got to meet him, and I love it when I meet a black man, a black person, that I can give that energy to them. He cried. He had tears in his eyes. And he said, oh, thank you. And I said, I try to do it with people because I know I want to send that on to you, because there's so much unfairness that you're living with. So it was neat. He was cute as can be. He was a very handsome kid. And then when I went to leave, somebody else came in and hugged him, a big guy, and he said, how are you, Tom? And that was it. It was so cute. So anyhow, I have lots of little, and one time down here, one day I was doing that to one boy, and he was delivering something, and he was so cute. And when I did it to him, he hugged me too, because he said, you really are fortunate. And over here, 3 little black kids were playing one day, and they live across the street. And I was over, and I was walking the dog, and I went over and said hi, and they were so cute. And there was his cousin was there. There was a cousin and 3 little boys, and the cousin said, oh, something, and I said, well, I met Martin Luther King. And she said, you met Martin Luther King? And those boys just jumped on me almost. Martin Luther King, you talked to him? I said, yes, honey, I did. I said, do you want to touch me and take his energy with you? They were precious. And every so often they come over closer to see it when I'm walking. But now I'm not walking the dog anymore, so I don't see him as much. But anyhow, it's neat. I'm glad I do it. I think.
What do you think about the state of race relations today?
Oh, I think it's pitiful. Oh, it's just awful. It just makes me, it's so sad.